Good afternoon, Jack.
Good, how you doing?
Good. I
Jack.
thought we were going to have to watch you upside down there for a while.
Well, it was,
Good.
I had to flip it around because the stand built into the iPad was not in the right direction. I hope I didn't give anybody vertigo.
Ashley, what council members are we waiting for?
Jean, actually, I'm clerking this one. So we got Nan, is Sunny here? And Purnell. So we're waiting for Sunny and Purnell. And Nan, you can start whenever you need to. You have a quorum.
I'll call Purnell.
No, I
And
see.
there's Sunny right there.
Right.
We do have a quorum?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, it is now 3 o'clock.
Hi, Janine.
Hey, Sunny.
Okay, good. Well, let's get started. I think Dale mentioned he was going to be joining us. He was not part of our committee, but good to have him.
I'm
But
here.
right, oh, are you there, Dale?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, good to have you. All right, I will call the, bring to order the Council Operations, Intergovernmental Relations and Public Transportation Committee, Tuesday, July 28th at 3 o'clock p.m. Clerk, please take the roll.
Calling the roll, Ms. Baker.
Here.
Ms. Simon. I see Ms. Simon. Mr. Jones.
Hi.
Okay, Mr. Jones is absent at the moment. Mr. Miller. Oh, I'm sorry. I see Mr. Jones also.
I'm here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Okay. And Mr. Swan.
Here,
There is a quorum.
Great, thank you. Is there any public comments?
No, Madam Chair, no one has submitted any public comment.
All right, may I get a motion to approve the minutes from May 19th after you've had a chance to review?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
second,
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of the minutes, say aye.
aye,
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you. We have one matter referred to committee, and that is 19 internal audit annual update. And we have today Director Monica Houston, who will be giving us an overview of the audit report. So welcome, Director. Good to have you here today.
Thank you. Good to be here.
If you would like to begin your slide, and we will have questions as we go.
Sure. Janine, please direct me. Do I need to share my screen to get the PowerPoint up?
Yes, you should be able to share your screen. It should be enabled.
Okay, one moment. Okay. Everyone see the screen?
Yes.
yes,
Okay.
yep,
Okay. So thank you, Councilwoman Baker, for allowing the Department of Internal Audit an opportunity to present on an annual audit report to the council. And for the rest of the council members in attendance, thank you for your support of the Department of Internal Audit this past year. I would also like to thank all of the council members for my recent reappointment, it will be my pleasure to continue to serve as the Director of Internal Audit. The Audit Committee Charter requires that the Audit Committee conduct and review with Council an evaluation of the committee's performance with respect to the requirements of the Audit Committee Charter and the Charter of Cuyahoga County. The highlights during the previous year are also shared. The annual update to Council report was distributed to all Council members on July 14th. Does everyone have a copy of this update?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
wonderful. It is my understanding that this is the 4th year that the department has provided this report in compliance with the charter requirements. Today's presentation will provide a high-level overview of the report. Our agenda for the day is for the purpose of the Audit Committee and current members, is to go over the evaluation of the committee's performance in 2019, the Department of Internal Audit's highlights for 2019, as well as the Department of Internal Audit's performance statistics. Our Audit Committee Chair, Michael Abuzarov, will present the first 2 items, and the Department of Internal Audit team will conclude the presentation with an overview of the audit process, department highlights, and the performance statistics. Does the committee have any questions on the agenda? Wonderful. I turn it over to Chairman Abuzarov.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Monica. So as Monica indicated, I'd also like to thank the County Council for the opportunity today to come and present this important information to the County Council. So my name is Mike Abuzarov. I've been on the Audit Committee since April of 2014, and this is the 5th year now that I've been chairing the Audit Committee. As Monica indicated, the Audit Committee and the Internal Audit Department was established by the County Charter. So I just want to kind of read this. I think it just really explains the role of the Internal Audit Department and ultimately the role of the Audit Committee. So the committee's mission is to provide internal auditing for the county executive, county council, and other county departments and organizations funded in whole or in part by county funds and providing taxpayers with efficient and effective services. So really the summarization of this sentence is really anywhere that the county is providing any type of a funding potentially falls under the purview of the Internal Audit Department. The committee plays a key role in fulfilling the county's governance responsibilities related to accounting and financial reporting practices, internal and external audit functions, and the county's overall control environment. So again, the responsibilities are broad. The scope of what internal audit can ultimately audit within the county operations is also pretty broad. The Internal Audit Department reports through the Audit Committee regarding the work that they do. So our role as the Audit Committee is to make sure, we have many roles, but one of the important roles that we fulfill is to make sure that the Internal Audit Department maintains their independence. So we ensure that the role and the reporting structure supports that. And ultimately the work that the Internal Audit Department is producing is actually accurate, supportable, and kind of fulfills the necessary auditing standards. In my opinion, I think the structure of the Audit Committee and the way that the Internal Audit Department actually reports is considered to be a best practice. And that, in my opinion, again, it's kind of supported by the peer review, which I'll talk about in a second. So that's really the purpose of the Audit Committee. The makeup of the Audit Committee. So I want to spend a little bit of time just talking a little bit about the makeup of the organizational structure so that County Council has a sense of the folks that actually perform this work. So there are 4 private citizens and Trevor, who's the appointment of the council president, actually are the voting members of the Audit Committee. Non-voting members are the county executive and the fiscal officer. So so you know all about Trevor, so I won't talk much about him, but as far as the private citizens, all of us are CPAs. All of us have significant experience in the governmental accounting area and or in the not-for-profit area. So myself personally, I have about 34 years in governmental accounting, a significant amount of those with the city of Cleveland. I also oversaw the performance audit department within the Auditor State's office, where we conducted a number of performance audits on county agencies. Yvette Itu, she's currently the CFO for the Greater Cleveland Partnership. She's also an attorney. Prior to that, she was the finance director for the city of Lakewood. She also, in her role as an attorney, was actually bond counsel. She's kind of worked on both sides of the, I guess, of the aisle in regards to that type of work. Keith Libman, he's actually he's a retiring partner from a local public accounting firm, Bober Markey. They do a lot of not-for-profit work. So there's clearly a correlation between the not-for-profit environment ultimately and the governmental accounting area. Gary Seamus, who actually resigned from the audit committee halfway through 2019. He was a partner from a local public accounting firm. He was replaced by Sal Tallarico this year, and Sal has about 20 years. He's a finance director for the city of Oberlin, and prior to that, he worked in the deputy auditor's office within the city of Parma. So hopefully, I think the makeup of the individuals who make up the audit committee, I think, are the kind of fit, I think, with the expectation of the charter and the expectations of the audit committee. I did want to use this as an opportunity to thank every member of the audit committee for their commitment. So we are active. We have great participation. We're asked to do a lot as the audit committee. We have to approve pretty much everything that comes out of the internal audit department. So everybody on the audit committee has been active and engaged and really doing what's necessary. We did conduct in 2019 4 quarterly meetings, so all of our information is available through the county's website in regards to the work that we do in the minutes. We also met 4 additional times in 2019 to ultimately, come up with a recommendation to the county council regarding Monica. So as Monica had indicated, she started toward the end of 2019, but for us to come up with that recommendation, we had to go through the interviewing process and then the decision-making process. So Monica, she started in 2019 and she brings a wealth of experience to the position. And you can kind of see that from the efforts that she's provided so far. So she's been, I think, just a great addition to the county. So what her experience has allowed her to do in a very short period of time is take some really good practices that had been instituted previously and just continue to improve and expand those and bringing in just an additional insight. And she's also established herself as a key resource already within the operations of the county. Pages 5 through 7, actually, of the update report. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but as the audit committee, we want to make sure that everybody's complying with what they're supposed to do. That's certainly one of the important parts of the scope. So we also want to make sure as the audit committee that we're complying with all the expectations. So in the actual update report, there's 18 items that we have identified as being the more important items of what the audit committee should be fulfilling. And the report just documents the fact that, we believe we fulfilled those in 2019 and really in prior years, as well as pre-requirements within the charter. So again, I don't want to spend too much. I think you want to hear maybe more about the audits, but I think those pages within the update report are important because it really governs the work of the audit committee. And I just kind of in closing, again, I think over the years, the Department of Internal Audit has become a best practice. So there's many, many things that the Internal Audit Department does that, I think are perceived to be best practices. And that actually kind of gets identified and recognized through the peer review. And I had mentioned last year that was the first year that the Internal Audit Department was able to pass a peer review. And in essence, what the peer review says is to be able to pass a peer review, we have to be doing everything appropriately and in accordance with auditing standards. And when the peer reviewers came in, they actually had zero recommendations for the Internal Audit Department. Lastly, for me, one of the key ways of kind of appreciating the progression of an internal audit function is when county agencies are actually requesting internal audit come in and conduct an internal audit. So, just the nature of the business, a lot of times agencies and organizations would probably rather not have internal audit come in and and conduct work. But in the case of Cuyahoga County, and these are actually areas that are outside of the county executive office, have actually requested internal audit to come in and conduct audits. And I think that's a clear reflection of the progression and the professionalism of the organization. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Monica. And again, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. So in compliance with professional standards and industry best practices, the Department of Internal Audit uses a process to guide our work. On the slide before you is that audit process that was used for 2019. Initially, we start the process with identifying an audit. And once that audit has been identified, we conduct a pre-audit meeting with the auditee. We then perform audit planning and field work. Thereafter, we develop an audit report in draft form and we send that to the auditee. That is then followed up with a post-audit meeting where we talk with the auditee and talk through any issues and recommendations. We subsequently give that report to management so that they can provide their management responses. Once those responses are received and we're in agreement that they meet they resolve the issue, that the action plan will actually resolve the issue, we send that report to the audit committee for review. Thereafter, if the audit committee approves the report, it is then distributed to the county management as well as the council and posted to the county's public website. The following step of our process, the final step of our process is to perform follow-up reviews. Usually those are performed 12 months after the audit is released. So that was the process for 2019. There is going to be a change to this process, and particularly that last step for 2020, and we'll talk about that later on in our presentation. Right now, we're going to move on to the DIA highlights, and I'm going to have Rose Karam, our Director of Internal Audit, present that to you since she has done such wonderful work in 2019 to have those audits completed. Rose.
Thank you, Monica. Good afternoon, Councilwoman Baker, council members, and other attendees. My name is Rose Karam. I'm the Audit Manager for Internal Audit. During 2019, Internal Audit completed 5 audits and reviews and 2 follow-up audits. I'll give you a brief rundown on each of them. Although we made many recommendations to address the findings and the issues that we found, I will only be touching on the more significant ones. The details for other findings and recommendations not significant enough to bring to your attention at this time can be found in the individual audit reports and this update that was provided to you. Looking at your agenda, I'll touch on the first HR benefits review on the list for 2018, and then jump down to the 5th one on the agenda, the HR benefits review for 2019, since they are related. And I believe that by reviewing them side by side, you'd get a better understanding of the progress that was made by benefits. So the 2018 first benefits review was a consulting engagement done to recalculate and reconcile employee withholdings for the first 7 pay periods of 2018. So we looked at the accuracy of the elections, that employees were defaulting into the correct plans and life insurance elections, and ensuring that terminated employees were not still receiving benefits. After comparing our recalculated amounts to actual pay register deductions and allowances, we determined 17% were not accurately reconciled to the deduction register, resulting in $6,360 in employee overpayments, which have been rectified. In addition, DIA identified pay rate discrepancies for 89 employees when comparing the pay rates between SAP and the payroll registers. These discrepancies were more than likely the cause of inaccuracies in both the life insurance deductions and elected coverage amounts. These and other results were communicated to the HR benefits group throughout the review period. Due to implementation of the new ERP enrollment system, benefits had not fully addressed all of the above findings as of the date of our report, but indicated the findings would be addressed as soon as possible. Moving on to the second HR benefits review of eligibility and withholdings done in 2019, Internal Audit noted that there were fewer findings in this review of employee withholdings compared to the previous review, which was limited to specific employee groups. The decrease in the number of findings confirmed that implementation of the ERP for the 2019 open enrollment reduced or prevented reoccurrence of most of the prior issues. The review is an ongoing process due to implementation of the ER. Was in the second review a 17% improvement over the previous year for employees with withholding errors, with 3 times the number of employees tested. In 2018, there were 351 errors, and in 2019, there were 10 errors. For the terminated employees, the result was less than a 0.1% error rate. So we noted quite a bit of improvement in that area.
Great.
Next, I'd like to touch on Children and Family Services, the duty-related travel reimbursement. This audit resulted from a prior review of county reimbursements the department did in 2018. The purpose was to ensure the duty-related travel was in compliance with county and DCFS policies, that adequate controls, internal controls were in place, and that mileage calculations appeared reasonable, and also that DCFS maintained adequate support. We calculated the cost benefit of automating the duty-related travel reimbursement process and the cost benefit of utilizing county-owned vehicles as opposed to employees using their personal vehicles. Our conclusion was, considering the number of employees required to travel on a daily basis through DCFS. Hello?
Hey. Yeah.
Which is approximately
Good, great.
400.
Gene,
Travel reimbursement process overall appears to be well managed. However, control weaknesses and inefficiencies were noted in mileage calculations due to the very manual and time-consuming processes used. Our main recommendation was
I'll pass that along. Thank you.
Our main recommendation was to consider switching to an automated mileage reporting software that could be integrated with the ERP to address both of these issues. Next is Invest in Children. Our purpose in doing this audit was to test subrecipient monitoring, and this was something new for us. To do this, we audited to ensure that Invest in Children had monitoring controls in place and they functioned as intended. They were meeting their contractual obligations and confirmed accurate disbursement of funds and compliance with all applicable contracts. We found some control weaknesses related to the invoice review process and report monitoring that resulted in recoveries of $54,468, as well as underpayments of nearly $14,000 to providers. These were mainly due to manual processes, and the overpayments have been recovered. Our conclusion was, overall, Invest in Children is doing a good job managing its programs and providers. Based on their responses and changes made during the audit, we believe corrective action has been and will continue to be taken to mitigate the risks that were identified. Moving along, we have APHIS. I don't see it on there. The Justice Services Grant Funds. This was not an actual audit. This was done in conjunction with the Inspector General's office. Therefore, we made no recommendations. The county received a grant to support improvements in the automated fingerprint identification system shared by the county and the city of Cleveland through the purchase of 2 Blade servers, which are computer hardware. Medical examiners' software had become obsolete and would no longer be supported by the vendors. It needed a temporary upgrade, a bridge, and eventual replacement. However, due to confusion, miscommunication, and timing, the county did not have a clear plan for implementation of the hardware purchase. As a result, the project went off track and the wrong hardware was used, resulting in the need to return approximately $300,000 associated with the grant the county received. Those were the normal audits and consulting engagements we conducted. We also did 2 follow-up audits. The first was parking services. The parking services implemented 26 of the 28 recommendations made in our initial audit, and the remaining 2 recommendations were partially implemented as best they could to address DIA's made big strides to complete the recommendations and took corrective action to improve their cash handling processes. When we finished, they were purchasing a new system to be implemented at the Justice Center to integrate with their current program for the other parking areas. And lastly was the Sheriff's Office commissary follow-up. The commissary office implemented 20 of the 38 recommendations from the 2014 audit. The majority of the 8 partial and 10 not implemented recommendations were due to delays in implementing their new jail management system. In fact, 7 of the 10 not implemented recommendations dealt specifically with creating a policy and procedures manual, which would need to be based on the process and software. Improvements were made to the inventory control system, including barcode scanners and the ability to reconcile as needed. Periodic inventories are now being taken. So at this point, I'd like to ask if any of the committee members have questions about any of the information I presented.
Thank you very much for all your presentations. Very thorough. We appreciate knowing what you've been working on in the resolution. Any members have a question at this point to ask? I have a couple questions. On the last point of the sheriff's office, did you say that it was recommended for them to have a, let's see here. You wanted them to have a new management system for them to properly follow recommendations. Did they do any what you asked? Do they have a policy in place that would have and will continue to do should done? Or did they just follow your recommendations and not proceed having an operations system, management system?
They were implementing the operations management system as we were finishing the audit. We have not done a follow-up since then to determine that's something we would probably do a little bit down the line to allow them to get the system in place and work out the bugs and give them ample time to get it running and then give it a good assessment.
Great, that's good to know. Thank you. Let's see. I had another one written down here. The ERP you mentioned for the travel, that once the ERP is at a point where it can help manage the automated mileage software, is that something that as we're working with ERP, we should try to reinforce? Are they cooperative in switching to that automated mileage software?
As we, during the audit, we did several bits of research to find different systems and to give them an idea what it would cost. They were going to do further research on their own to see what could work for them, to dig further into the pricing and stuff and how they could integrate that with the ERP. We have not been in touch with them to see what the results of their extended research was. But I would hope that they're trying to tie it into the ERP. That was part of what we recommended. That would definitely streamline their process.
And as written, 218,976 is the potential savings they could have annually by installing this software?
Yes, depending on what the software is, that was our best cost estimate. And one of the changes they did make was during the audit was to switch to county vehicles, which saved them money because people were using individual vehicles. It was more difficult to track mileage and get accurate readings. So that helped as well.
Good. Thank you very much. Any other questions from any other members? All right. I know the report was very thorough. Director Houston, I know you mentioned that you wanted to talk about a change in your audit process. Would you
Yeah,
like
so we have
to,
a Councilwoman Baker. We have additional things to go over with you
all right.
as part of our presentation. So if I may continue on with the next thing on the agenda, which is the DIA highlights as it relates to the engagements in progress.
Sure, please proceed.
Okay. As of December 31st, 2019, there were 4 audits in progress, which were transferred over to the 2020 audit year. These engagements are listed on the slide. They are the Sheriff Civil Division follow-up. The Juvenile Court had 2 audits that were still in progress, cash collection and ancillary services and grants, as well as the IT asset inventory. Also listed is the ERP project, which is an ongoing consulting assignment that we have, and you will get more insight into that in a few moments. Additionally, in 2019, there was some non-audit related work that was performed by the Internal Audit Department. And one of those items was the bank reconciliation process, which I am sure you guys are very interested in. DIA provided a full-time resource to assist fiscal in developing and implementing a bank reconciliation process. At last report, fiscal was making progress in bringing the bank reconciliation up to date, but their efforts have been significantly impacted by the lack of resources due to the ERP implementation, as well as the departure of key personnel. There are 2 parts to this process. There is the actual performance of the reconciliation and then the management review. Performance of the reconciliations is complete through January of 2020, so almost current. And then the management review, which is where they've been having a significant amount of their issue, the management review is only complete through April of 2019. Fiscal has indicated that it is their plan to have the reconciliations up to date by this September, and to at that time determine the amount of reconciling adjustment, as there will need to be an adjustment to the books, which will be presented to council by fiscal for discussion and approval. The audit committee has requested that fiscal provide monthly updates to them on the progress. And as part of our monitoring activity, DIA will continue to monitor this concern. Additionally, during the year, we, as part of professional standards, perform an annual risk assessment of the organization. This risk assessment is used to determine the annual audit plan. And for 2020, the risk assessment was performed at the end of 2019 under my guidance. There were some significant revisions that were done to the audit plan. As Chairman Abuzarov said, I brought to a different viewpoint on some things. So, we increased the auditable units. We increased our scoring of risk factors. There were some additional quantitative measures that we used. And then we also began scoring both inherent and residual risk, which can impact the audit plan, and did impact the audit plan for 2020, hopefully to help us get a plan where our resources were being used where most of the risk was. So just an improvement, nothing really major, but just a slight improvement over what we had been doing. Additionally, as part of our overall responsibilities, we in the audit committee work with the auditor of state to ensure that the financials are reviewed and audited in a timely fashion. So we work with fiscal and AOS and keep a hand on the pulse of what's going on to ensure that that financial audit is done in a timely manner. So those are the things that we've done. I'd like to have John Cornwell, our IT analyst, come and talk to you and give you some more detail about ERP.
Great,
John?
thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is John Cornwell. I'm the Investigative System Analyst, which is a shared resource between the Agency of Inspector General and the Department of Internal Audits. During the year 2019, I conducted 18 reviews related to access and security within the ERP project and Enforce solution. These reviews encompass the modules of OPD, GHR, EAM, CTM, payroll, GL, and WFM. I also reviewed documentation related to business processes, the Active Directory federated service function, its infrastructure and design, as well as famous user access, county connectivity between our systems and Infor, a matching review of the Infor Active Directory and employees in SAP, and a review of the Infor Cuyahoga County Disaster Recovery and Continuing Operations Plan. Included in these 18 reviews were 5,412 mapped roles and security classes. These reviews lasted anywhere between a few days and multiple weeks, depending on the size of the scope of the review. The reviews were conducted comparing access and security between users, roles, and the assigned security classes, looking for issues related to segregations of duty, access security standards, and ensuring accuracy and integrity of user roles within the ERP solution. These reviews are continuous and growing. Still, changes are made to accounts and access. When these changes arise, I'm provided with proper documentation so that I can review and revise any issues that may have been found in the past or could be found in a more current review. Additionally, I would like to thank the staff of the ERP project, especially Robert Knoll's team, for their expediency and diligence when it comes to providing me with the timely and accurate information that I need for my work and reviews. And I'd also like to thank everyone else who I've contacted during these reviews. Do committee members have any questions related to this matter?
Any questions by the committee members regarding the ERP?
John? Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
Sunny, thank you so much. I have a question on the juvenile court cash collection service audit. I just have a question about the courts being somewhat of a separate branch of government in a way. Is there full cooperation with the courts when you go into their systems to audit them?
In these instances, and I'll let Rose speak in a minute, but in these instances, I am pleased to say yes, because they asked for these audits. Am I correct in that, Rose? That these audits were at the request of the juvenile court?
Yes, they were as a result of from the court going to a training and meeting with other members of a county court system and going over their audit report and seeing what issues they had. And our court staff looked at that and said, we're doing the same things. We are, probably going to have issues as well. So they took a proactive step and they called us and asked if we would come in and review their processes and help them improve and get in compliance with what they needed. So it was, normally we wouldn't be stepping in there, but they invited us in for that, for the juvenile court.
Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Madam
Any
Chairwoman?
questions?
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. My question is involving the audit, internal audit of the Enterprise Resource Planning Project. And what, if any, analysis did they come up with of the project, how it's running, all the pieces and parts, and the timeliness, the accuracy, anything that they could share with us as we are going to be sitting down and having a conversation on Thursday with our committee of the whole.
And I can't see, was that Councilman?
Strong? Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Strong. Strong. I confused. Yes. So let me explain that to you. The work that was done in 2019 was more on a consulting basis. We did not actually perform audit work. There does need to be some post implementation work done, and we will need county council support and us getting that work done. The work that was done in 2019 was pretty much on the front end and on a continuous basis of monitoring and making sure that certain controls were in place, like segregation of duties in the roles, things of that nature, but a full analysis and audit and review of that system has not been done, but it does need to be done.
In your review of the roles, at that point in time, we did not have a clear leadership direction of a single individual. What did you come up with as a result of your review of the roles?
John, can you please explain to him what is specifically you looked at from a roles perspective and make it clear exactly what that entailed?
Sure. So the reviews that I conducted in 2019 regarding roles and the different security classes were looking at it from a segregation of duty and security standpoint, not so much a business process standpoint. So it was more of a security review and an access management review.
But ultimately, security would result in be residing in an individual that was supposed to be running the project to give ultimate authority for any security components. What did you find as far as the way in which we were conducting this project from a security standpoint? Because there has to be a buck stops here some point, even within the security, especially within the security. What did you find?
So that would have been eventually drilled down into the project management, whoever were the leading for the different modules, such as OPD, GHR, the different management teams within those roles.
Okay, well, if you are looking to do this as a post go live of the ERP internal audit, the talk is that we're not going to see a post date until sometime into late spring of next year. Why wait? Why not start now?
Well, we could start on those modules that have been implemented, but in order to do a post-implementation review, which is required and should be done for any large implementation, you do have to wait till it's in place, because if we do it beforehand, and there's no guarantee that what you get at the end is what we audited. So you would be actually auditing it twice. So you really want to make sure that it's steady state, as we call it, before you actually do any audit work on it, so that you know that what you're auditing is actually what is going to be, and that any findings or issues are what is in the current state, and that when those changes are made, you're good. If you do it when it's in flux, like it is currently in flux, you will wind up doing it twice, because it's a moving target. So from an efficiency and resource perspective, it's always better to conduct your post-implementation audit after it's been in steady state.
I understand that, but you cannot say that we are looking for efficiency of funding at this point in time with this project. And so it would behoove us to know whether we're even on the right path, because when you punch that last button saying we're going live, it would sure be nice to know that somebody else has looked at this project, because we've got 9 more months before we're going to punch that button. And if we're on the wrong track today, I'd love to know it before we go down that path too much further.
We are certainly able to meet the council's request in that regard. Currently, we don't have the resources internally with the skill set that would be needed. So that's something that internal audit would need to manage on an outsourced basis. And that would involve additional dollars.
We don't have that either.
We do not have the skill set that's needed to give you the answers that you're looking for in-house right now. John is wonderful, but John, his skill set is limited in that regard to the work that he's performed this far.
Yes, sometimes you can find the projects can get audited, not necessarily by somebody with the highest skill set, but just by someone asking the right questions. And I'm sure John could do that. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Dale, go right ahead.
I'd like to follow up on what Councilman Tron said. And in my opinion, the ERP system is not going to be in a steady state at any time in the foreseeable future. As soon as we get done with this first phase of implementation, then we're into phase 2, and we're into a possible system upgrade, and we're into non-executive agencies. And so I think it would make sense for you to consider the program has been very well segmented. There's sections that are up and running and have been running have been up and running for months. And then there's other sections that, as Councilman Tron said, they're not expected to go live for well into the end of the first quarter or so of 2021. So you might consider choosing some particular segments that are already fully operational and have been so for some time and getting started. I don't think you have to do the whole thing at once because it's a large operation.
Thank you, Councilman Miller. You are correct in that, and I do apologize if I wasn't clear. Currently on our 2020 audit plan, we have a post-implementation review for those that we'd like to perform, for those that have been in steady state or implemented for some time. I did not mean to indicate that we needed to wait for everything to finish before it needed to be done. However, those ones in which they are finished, we can do. We do still have some limitations from a resource perspective, and we've been working with the IT department as well as some other internal individuals within the executive team to try to identify resources that we can use, financial resources that we can use in order to get that work done. So it is has been tentatively approved by our audit committee for us to do that work. We just need to find the funds necessary in which to do it.
Okay.
Director,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
as you can hear, there is an elevated concern about the ERP project, and please come back to us with a recommendation, as you have with other agencies, and let us know what it is that you need. I believe payroll and workforce training are the two large pieces that have not yet been implemented. But there are, as you said earlier, there are many parts of the ERP that are going live and can be reviewed. And I agree with Councilman Schron and Miller that it's better to find out now if there's any quirks along the way than to wait until we switch the light on and say we're ready to go completely. So let us know what your obstacles are and what your needs are in order for you to do a good job in auditing the ERP project. And we'll take that under advisement.
Thank you,
Madam
Councilman.
Chairwoman.
Yes.
Yeah, recognizing that the operative words are that this is the internal independent auditors reviews that you folks are doing. I still would love to give you guidance that there is not a higher priority than this item because of the ERP's impact touches all aspects of county government, from health and human services all the way through to public works. And we've got to get everything right on this because it's going to be, this cow is going to be out of the barn if we are picking up errors in June, July of next year, and we've already gone live. So I would just encourage you, and sometimes grabbing just small subsets and analyzing whether that subset was working correctly can give you the microcosm that would then explode up into the macrocosm to see whether or not it's doing well. So again, I know you're independent. I encourage you the independence and welcome if you would consider looking in more in depth at this because it is such an impactful piece of our county government. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. We certainly agree with that. And that's why it's on our audit plan for 2020 for us to do some work in this area. Again, professional standards require that when we do this work, that we do it in a manner in which it is thorough and complete. And so we have to have the appropriate skill set in which to do it. And we are working on trying to identify resources that will allow us to gain that skill set and be able to effectively do this work.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Director Easton? All right, please proceed.
Okay. So the Department of Internal Audit identifies different performance statistics each year. My understanding is that this is the 4th year in which Internal Audit has been providing statistics to the council. Those 2 statistics are cost recoveries and savings and recommendations. DIA identifies cost recoveries and estimated cost savings to the county based on implementation of our recommendations. This is one performance measure to indicate the value we bring to the county. The table on page 13 of your report details potential cost savings and recoveries by year since the department inception, which was 2013. The potential cost savings for each year only reflects first year financial savings to the county, not the cumulative savings over time. So if you look at the chart on the screen as well as on page 13, you will see that based on the department's average actual expenditures, which is $498,000, and the potential cost savings and recoveries identified, the calculated annual rate of return on our services is 41%. In other words, if the county invested its annual expenditures for the Internal Audit Department at the beginning of each year for the past 7 years, the county would have had to earn 41% interest compounded annually to match the $12.4 million that we identified as potential cost savings and potential recoveries over the past 7 years. So your investment seems to be paying off in the Internal Audit Department. We also give a statistic of recommendations. We use recommendations as a performance measure. As shown in this slide, audited departments fully implemented 75% of our audit recommendations made between 2013 and 2018. The chart only relates to audits released with conclusion of a follow-up review. Out of the 18 audits released between 2013 and 2018, we completed and released 8 follow-up reviews prior to 2020. DIA attempts to perform follow-up procedures approximately 12 months after the report release, which is a requirement under our internal audit charter as well as auditing standards. No follow-up reviews have been completed for the 5 engagements concluded in 2019 and referenced earlier in the presentation. As I mentioned earlier when I was talking about the audit process, follow-ups is the last part of our process, and we are looking to change that beginning with the year of 2020. We'll be going from follow-up audits to the use of an issue tracking log. The use of a log to track all audit issues to resolution is an industry best practice, and it allows for more timely reporting on the progress management is making in implementing agreed upon action plans. Additionally, such process allows us to more effectively leverage the current process that the executive has put into place to manage the audit issues. That process uses Catherine Tatchett and the innovations team to centrally manage the organization's remediation efforts and ensure more timely responses, as well as the efficient use of resources. The audit issue tracking log is what it will be called, and it will be presented to and discussed with the audit committee on a semi-annual basis, as well as provided to the council annually. We do believe that this will be an improvement in terms of transparency on a more regular basis as to where the organization stands in resolving any issues that are identified from an audit perspective.
Very good.
That concludes our audit. Do we have any our presentation? Do we have any questions?
Any questions from the members? The one question I had, you had 75 fully implemented recommendations. Were there any recommendations that you made in that 25% that you felt needed to be addressed and weren't? Anything that was a red flag for you?
Very good question, Councilwoman Baker. Just because they have not implemented doesn't mean that they will not do so. They're still open, and unless we agree with how they've addressed them, they remain open. Or if management says that they'd like to accept the risk, and in which case that would be ferreted up to the audit committee, and the audit committee would then, I imagine, ferret it up to the council if it's a significant acceptance of risk. So that just shows you what has been implemented thus far. There are still open items from some audits that have not been closed out. Some of them are awaiting implementation of ERP, quite honestly. Rose, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that was a pretty good summation. Most of them have been addressed as they're going along, but there are some timing issues as to when we do the audit and when the recommendations can be implemented. So the tracking log will be able to follow up on a more current basis rather than waiting a whole year to do the follow-up.
I like the new audit tracking log. That sounds like something that is live and current, and you're not always talking in the past. So I think that'll be a great tool for us to review and bring it forward. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Any other comments from the committee? I have just one, and I mentioned this to you before we started our committee this morning, and just to put on your radar as to whether or not you feel it's a high priority or not. And that is our struggle sometimes to accept contracts that are given to us late, which means that either services were or may not have been provided yet. Some have been provided. Of course, they cannot be paid because we haven't given consent yet. And I know it was on the audits committee radar a few years ago. And with ERP and the COVID-19 and the Lawson system, lots of reasons why things are coming in late. But even before all that, we had struggles of accepting contracts. Even with the Board of Control yesterday, 10 months, a year, sometimes late. And I would ask if you could put that on your radar and see if there is something there that you find needs to be investigated.
Councilwoman Baker, we certainly will do that. We currently have on our audit plan capital projects, which crosses all aspects of the capital projects system. And in multiple departments. I believe contracts is a portion of that, not all contracts, but at least those related to capital projects. So we certainly will touch that and see if that's the case for capital projects. But in regards to the overall procurement and contracts process, we will definitely consider that and see what work we can do this year around that.
Great, I appreciate it. As other members, especially on Board of Control, it's a little frustrating. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments from the members before we close? Well, thank you very much for the presentation, all of you. Been insightful, good for us. I would imagine you haven't mentioned it. I would think that the COVID-19 has been difficult for you to work in what you need to. And have you found that you're still been able in 2020 to do what you need to do in order to bring us your report, or has it been a hindrance?
Councilwoman Baker, there has been some modifications to our audit plan based upon the COVID response. The team is still working diligently to complete those audits that we can complete. But of course, we're being mindful of the overall impact to the organization and the resource constraints that have been presented by COVID. So we are modifying our plans accordingly, working with management to try to address those that are most pertinent in terms of risk areas, as well as emerging risk. I mean, there are some emerging risks with the legislation around COVID that we've been working closely with management on to get ahead of things. Prevention is worth a pound of cure. So we will continue to work and have continued to work diligently and to give the taxpayers value for the resources that they provide to the Internal Audit Department. But there have been challenges, but we are working around those challenges and with management and trying to get work done on a current basis. That will be, I guess, further hindered a little bit by the retirement of Rose Karam. She is going to be retiring in October, but I think her last day in the office will be August 27th. So we do wish her well, but we are looking for her replacement. So of course, there may be some impact there, but we're going to continue our best as long as I'm on the guard to do all that we can do to bring about the work for the Internal Audit Department that needs to be done.
Great. And congratulations, Rose. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any miscellaneous business? Hearing none. Again, thank you for your presentation. It was very insightful. We look forward to hearing from you again. And if I hear no other business, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.